Hey everybody, welcome back. So in today's video, I'm really excited to share with you guys the limited edition Suhr Standard Legacy guitar. Now these guitars come in a couple different variants. We'll talk about each one and all the specs here in just a minute or two. But first I want to talk about the concept of these guitars, and let's go back in time and talk a little history here to put it all into context. Alright, let's jump on into it. So let's first read what Suhr has to say about the concept of this guitar. Quote unquote, arriving this fall based on a legendary guitar, the first guitar designed and built by John Suhr for himself in 1984. And then it goes on into the specs, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Now, in order to go back and put all this into context, at the time, in 1984, John was working for Rudy's Music on 48th Street in New York City. Now, John would soon go on to start building guitars to sell from the shop under the name Pensa Suhr, Pensa being the last name of owner Rudy Pensa. And they would go on to rack up a pretty notable list of clientele or customers, including Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler, Peter Frampton, Lou Reed, Steve Stevens of Billy Idol, and Red Beach of Winger, to name a few. So you can see it's a pretty diverse group of players that were using these guitars. But the one player of that group that really became synonymous with that era of John's guitar building was Mark Knopfler. Here you can see him on the cover of Guitar World in 1987 holding a black Pensa Suhr guitar. And the one that really caught people's attention, the one that really became most synonymous with that relationship, is this guitar shown here, which became known as the MK1 guitar. So for me, when I first saw these guitars, I couldn't help but think back to the Mark Knopfler relationship in those Pensa Suhr days. You know, as a guitar player that was a teenager in the 80s, I would subscribe to Guitar World and Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and I'd be so excited every month to get my copies, and I would read them front to back. I mean, every single piece of text, whether it was an article, interview, or an ad, every single note of tab. It was always so exciting to get these magazines because, of course, it was before the days of the World Wide Web, and this is how a lot of us got our information about guitars. So for me, again, there's just a lot of nostalgia when I see these guitars, and it kind of takes me back to those days. It makes it a lot of fun for me. All right, let's get into the specs now. So first of all, the body is made of okume, which many of you know is a variant of mahogany that comes from Africa. And then it's got a maple top, and you can see that there are several different finishes available. So from left to right, first we have the Suhr Burst finish, which is what I got. Then we have black, followed by aged cherry burst, Pelham blue, which is a new color for Suhr, and trans caramel. And I think they all look really fantastic. And then we've got scraped binding, and then for the bridge, we've got a real Floyd Rose, an original Floyd Rose model, which is kind of cool because, you know, typically Suhr, when they put a Floyd-style bridge on their guitars, they use the Gotoh Floyd. And I've said it before, I love the Gotoh Floyd. I think it's fantastic, but I thought it was cool that they really wanted to go back and revisit the original days and put an original Floyd on. I thought that was a cool touch. Now, as an alternative to the Floyd Rose, you can also get this with a Gotoh 510 bridge. Then we've got some EMG pickups. We've got an 85 in the bridge, and then we've got the SA pickup in the middle and neck positions. And believe it or not, this is actually the first time that I've owned a guitar with active pickups. All these years, I've kind of avoided them, but then lately I've been getting the itch, you know, just to have them, you know, to make my collection a little bit more versatile. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to jump into that world. And of course, I'll play a little bit for you here in just a minute. And then for controls, we have volume, tone, and a 5-way selector. And there's actually something very interesting going on here. Obviously, position 1 is the full bridge position. Position 2, I'm going to skip that for a second, we'll come right back. Position 3 is the middle pickup, position 4 is middle neck, and position 5 is the neck pickup. Okay, back to position 2. So the EMG 85, many of you know, is not a pickup that you can split. EMG came out with pickups later that you could split in the bridge position, but you can't with the 85. So instead of John cheating and going back and using a different EMG pickup, he wanted to remain faithful to the original that he used back in the day, the 85. So we put in what's become known as the MK mod. And this is something that John Suhr did way back in the day, wherein he adds I believe a resistor and capacitor when you're in position 2, and then it kind of acts as a filter to change that bridge pickup. So it attempts to replicate the sound of having a single coil in the bridge position mixed with the middle position. One of those classic Strat in-between settings that we've all come to love. Now that said, it's not a perfect replacement for having a single coil there, but it comes close enough for my needs. And of course it was about remaining true to the original design. Next we've got a maple neck in Suhr's Even C Slim profile with a Indian rosewood fingerboard. Got a 10 to 14 inch compound radius, satin finish on the back of the neck, and then we've got 22 stainless steel frets. These are Suhr's heavy frets. And I know people ask a lot of questions about these. I've talked about it in the past, but basically they're wide frets, but they're kind of moderate height. Now, some people refer to them as wide but short. To me, I don't consider them to be very short. I mean, it's all relative. If you compare them to jumbo frets, they might seem kind of short. But when you look at, kind of the diversity of fret sizes out there, they're really, in terms of a height, they're kind of in the middle. So I always call them wide but moderate height. Then we've got a locking nut, but if you went with the 510 bridge, the Goto 510, you'd have a tusk nut up here. And then with the headstock, you can see that it's painted black, although with the Pelham Blue model, it's actually Pelham Blue. It kind of looks cool on that one. And then we've got the gold Suhr logo. We've got scrape binding again on the headstock, and then Suhr locking tuners to wrap it all up. Okay, now I'm going to play just a little bit for you here. I'm running the guitar into my Line 6 Helix processor and right into my PC. Let's go. Alright, so we've established that this guitar has some pretty good clean guitar tones, but how does it sound with a crunch or lead guitar tone? Let's quickly run through that. Alright, that was my video on the Suhr Standard Legacy guitar. If you found it informative, I would appreciate a thumbs up, and please hit that subscribe button if you've not done so already. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I will attempt to answer them as time allows. Until next time, rock on.